Well, I know no reason why we shouldn't knock out another blurb. Now that the mic's on, let's do it. Okay. Here's a good one for Martin Luther King Day. I've told this story before, but I've never actually recorded it. And it's one of my favorite stories. I'll tell you the truth, it is. It kind of paints the human condition as it should well be. Um, a neat story. Anyway, I hope you like it. Um, I'm going to change the names, just because I actually the people involved might not even be with us anymore, but or they'll like me, they'll be very very old. So let's go with it. Um, it's the story of Tom and Joe. Okay. Uh, well, yeah, okay. I was heading back. I was laying around in the back of the ambulance, the transport ambulance. We had just dropped off a patient we had taken from our town out in northeastern North Carolina to well, it took a patient into Raleigh, and it was about it was about 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning. There was three of us on the duty crew. There was Tom, who was white, and Joe, who was black, and then me. Well, I was a Yankee, and uh, it was late at night. I had to get up and go to work. Tom and Joe were okay. They evidently could sleep in a bit. So they said, "Hey, Doc, why don't you go lay in the? You can just kind of conk out on the stretcher back there." I said, "Yeah, good idea." So I'm laying there listening to those two talking, and well, Tom's hollering over to Joe. He says, "Hey, look, Joe, what do you think? We could maybe on Saturday. Why don't you come on over? We'll get a case of beer, and we've been saving up those fish cheeks now for quite a while. We ought to be cooking them." And Joe says, that's a good idea, Tom. I think, yeah, I will. What kind of beer you want? No, I don't know. They came up with some name of a beer, Budweiser, let's say. Could be any of them. And or maybe they got a variety pack, but they were all excited about this fish cheek thing. And again, Joe's saying, "Man, he says, man, we've got a lot of them. They're going to be fun to eat." And they holler, "Hey, South, you want to come over too?" I said, "Well, I, well, I said, I don't know. What are you talking fish cheeks?" They said, "You don't know what fish cheeks is?" I said, "No, this is Joe now." He's saying, "Man, you Yankees." And I said, "Yeah, but what do you do?" He says, "Well, we go fishing, Tom and me, and when we catch a fish, of course you clean the fish, and you eat the normal part between the gill and the tails, but if you got a real sharp knife, what you do is you slice the little piece of meat that's between the gill and the mouth of the fish. That's the cheek, and you save them. It's not very big. It's like a potato chip." But you save them, and when you get enough of them, you fry them up, and they're absolutely the best part of the fish you ever had. I said, "Well, I don't know, maybe." Anyway, those two were they, all the way back. It was like a 30-40 mile ride, and we couldn't go lights and siren because we had no one in the car, and there was no other emergency back in our town, so we're just taking our time. And that's what they talked about the whole darn night, the whole ride back. Oh my gosh, drooling. Oh, and but I was mesmerized. And they were just so excited about the upcoming Saturday, getting together, bringing the families, they're all going to be eating. Okay, so I get back to the squad. I don't know. I just kind of filed it away, and I know one day, I don't know, I was just hanging around the squad hall, and I said to I don't know, I often ran with Tom and Joe, and but I was saying to one of my I guess the captain of the squad, and I said, "Captain, what's the deal? Those two are such good friends. I'm amazed. I mean, they're really I, I'm I, it's heartening to see them just be so well, like everyone here, they're all, but they're very, they, they were talking about the fish cheek thing. Oh, and the captain goes, yeah, fish cheeks. He says, actually, they are good. Did you go? I said, when they were cooking them, I said, oh, yeah, yeah. He said, yeah, I know. But he said, you got to get used to them. But he said, man, they are pretty good. So we're, so I said, well, he said, they weren't always so friendly. I said, what do you mean? I said, oh, they hated each other. Uh, it's exactly what he said. He said, our squad, up till Joe came with us, was all white. It's just how it worked out. And Joe he took the EMT courses, and he came over one day and said he wanted to join. And Joe being well, what they do is they have a meeting to decide on a new member. If someone comes in and says, "Hey, I want to be a member," they got to decide whether they want you or not. And well, this was the South, and there were people. In fact, they did that with me. They had to decide whether they wanted a Yankee on the squad. I talk funny, all that. Yeah, and who'd understand me the way I talk? Yeah, okay. And but in Joe's case, being black, it was there was a lot of guys said we don't want him, and it wasn't right to do that, of course. And one of the loudest proponents, most everybody was happy to take Joe, but there were a few, and the leader of the pack was Tom. He didn't want the, oh no, you don't, no, it's bad. You take him on, I'm leaving the next minute, and all this stuff, and oh, it got ugly. Well, long story short, Joe got voted into the squad, majority rules, and Tom was really, oh, he was mad, wouldn't talk to Joe. Yeah, it was ugly. Well, the captain, what he does was one day he's been watching this, how those two were just, giving each other the cold shoulder, he's thinking, God, they're going to have a fight. And he calls them both into his office, and they're sitting there at the captain's desk, and he says, well, you two, he says, I'm tired of your fighting. Here's what I'm going to do. You two are now partners, and that's it. Now, you two figure it out. I'm instructing the scheduler to make sure that when it's a duty night, it's you, Tom, it's you and Joe, and you're on your own. Oh my God. It was, from what I hear, that first duty night, it was very icy in the squad. Yeah, in the squad hall, and it was summer. There's no ice except maybe in your cooler down south in the summer, and in our squad hall. Oh my God, they were, yeah, and you'd see them go out on a run, all quiet and sullen. They took care of the patient, yeah, and got them back. They did a professional job. And Joe, for a newcomer, was a very good EMT, very good. Well, anyway, somehow or another, I'm not sure just what, but all of a sudden, I think from doing all the calls together, Tom realized that Joe was a pretty good EMT and not really such a bad guy. He was very good with the patients. Joe noticed that Tom wasn't really what would you call it, bigoted a person. He was nice to all the patients, regardless of gender, race, whatever. And I don't know, pretty soon they start talking. And I guess maybe they had a few serious calls where, maybe Joe got Tom out of a bind, because a lot of times the calls turned violent. You could have some trouble if you were in, trying to clean up after a fight. And Tom started helping Joe. Next thing you know, those two were the best of friends. They walked into the captain. They said, we want it understood that we are a regular duty crew, the two of us. And the captain says, what do you mean? He says, Joe says, he's such a nice guy. And Tom's saying, Joe, God, I love the man. He's so cool. And we're having a great time. Those two were inseparable after that. They would go to each other's homes. My God, they'd go out together, get some beers and stuff. And they were just the happiest pair. it all it took was putting them together and letting them get to know each other, especially in tough situations. And I think that was it. Was the idea that they they forgot their differences and jumped on the patient to help them, and that eventually turned them into the absolute best of friends. I know. I know they went to each other's kids' weddings, funerals. They were inseparable. It was like, honestly, it was like they were brothers. Yeah, yeah. It was a really cool thing to see, and it did the squad proud, I thought. And I always liked those two. I loved running with them because they had such conversations. Oh, they'd rag on each other and stuff, but it was never mean spirited. It was just cool. And Tom would give it to Joe. Joe would give it to Tom. They just have themselves a time, and wonderful and very good in a pinch. And I always liked Joe. I on occasion I ran with him too, and I got to say he was a wonderful EMT, as was Tom. So anyway, I thought I'd say. Maybe a message for Martin Luther King Day. Sometimes I think you just got to get together and you'll realize that that guy you perhaps didn't think too much of ain't such a bad guy after all. So anyway, my message to you for today, Martin Luther King Day. I think Martin Luther would have been he would have been looking down on that and saying, "Yep, just what I wanted." Maybe he had something to do with it. You never know. Anyway, friends, that's a wrap. We'll catch you later, and bye now.